Hey guys, just a quick note before the video. I'm going to start posting regular vlogs discussing my books every Friday. I can't guarantee that it'll all be books. Sometimes I'll do the drawings or the artwork or etc. I'm also going to try to have regular guests of my friends, my boyfriend, my sister who helps me a lot on the story. You're also probably going to hear my bird a lot in the background as she doesn't like when I'm doing stuff without her. And she talks a lot. Alright, here you go. Hey guys, what's up? It's me again. So, I did a vote across a couple of platforms, a fanfiction group I'm a part of, my friends, Facebook, and some other places, and the final winning vote was for Prey and the Wolf. So, yeah, I originally had it handwritten in a composition book, but I've been writing in it for so long that the composition book fell apart. So I put it in a binder, but all my other handwritten ones are, in fact, in composition books. Now, specific to this novel and the series itself, I use Bic Atlantis pens. Went to the wrong camera. This one is specifically the original Bic Atlantis pen. I love the way it writes. It's smooth. It feels right in my hand. Love it. As the series progresses, I use different versions of the Atlantis, but it is still the Atlantis pen. This is Mr. Glitters. He is my writing assistant. He came to work today in his pajamas because he didn't feel like putting on a suit and tie. Yeah. So a couple of backgrounds, I guess, is for Prey and the Wolf. I did go and find pictures, or take pictures actually specifically, of a place in Colorado, or several places in Colorado, that I wanted to use for my original location. I don't specifically want to name the places because there's different parts of different places that are the way I want, and there's a place that my dad recommended using that I haven't been to, but I wanted to see, and let me grab the photos. Where'd they go? There they went. So some of these are actual photos of me as well. Don't laugh. But we took a trip up to Colorado and we went through Grand Junction and everywhere else. So some of these are up in the mesas. There's this. I think this is an excellent photo. My sister spent the whole trip wanting to see a mountain goat, so we found a mountain goat. The hospital I was born. Some really good sunrise, sunset images. My family, we're just going to bypass that. We found this place in Colorado that's called No Name. So, the No Name rest area. That was a funny one. Here's up on the mountain. And then some more nature views that I thought, really fit with the storyline in the book. And the basics of the story is Prey is a young man of, I believe, 17 or 18 years old, or close to 18, who spent his early childhood bouncing orphanage to orphanage, foster home to foster home. Over the years, he did have abuse, as unfortunately is in most cases for kids who spend a lot of time in the system. Around the time that he was 10, I believe, he was adopted by Carol and her husband. Carol is his ma. He calls her ma. He has that kind of, it's not southern, and it's not like hardcore country, but it's a dialect more than an accent. It's just certain things that he says. He has that way of speaking. And they adopted him. He, even at the time, knew what he was, and of his own free volition was able to transform it well, as is. I'm speed talking. I have a unicorn mug, and it's full of milk tea, and I will be drinking periodically. Also, I have a really cool straw. So, the music in the background, if you can hear it, is a track I wrote using Music Maker Jam. Went through, edited all kinds of instruments, the notes, the tempo, everything. So this is the intro song that I want to have, or a base for what I want to have when I animate this book, because that is my goal. is to animate it and turn it into a manga and publish it as a movie or an animated movie and eventually have it made as a movie. First, I have to get to finish writing it. Both sides have a thing, by the way. So Carol and James, her husband, adopted Prey when he was 9 or 10 years old. And the reason that they chose him out of all of the other kids, the reasoning that he knew for most of his life anyway, was simply that Carol fell in love with him. He was just this adorable little lost boy that she had to take home and care for. The truth is, and spoiler alert, so, because they knew what he was. Prey spends his whole life, or most of his life, not knowing that they knew who and what he was, or they knew what he was at least. He, snuck out the window hiding that fact whenever he would lose control. But, so it's several years later, and the book, I know most people don't like to read first person, and I always write in first person, just because it's easier for me to get into the character, what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and then I always redo it into third, if I want to publish it. But it starts off with him talking about his first memory. And he says, "When people ask me what my first memory is, I find myself having to lie. It was me playing with my dog, or it's my parents wishing me a happy birthday. Why lie? Because my first memory seems more like a dream, and it would give away the only secret I've kept over the last 11 years. So he was 6 when he first, I'll explain it in a second. He was running through the woods, running and running, trying to get back home before sundown. I stopped along the riverbed and leaned down to take a drink. The clear gray water reflected my dark gray furry muzzle, I'm dyslexic, sorry, and my near black eyes. My ears perked at the sound of something in the bushes behind me moved. As something in the bushes behind me moved. Sorry. Something big was there, and I could sense it. Then, the next thing I know, I'm a 5-year-old boy sitting on the steps of a church on a rainy day. I see colors that I don't understand and hear humans talk in a language that I can't speak. Not sure if it was a memory from past lives or from my childhood. Now, I'm in a small town somewhere in Colorado, as I already explained. And it's basically like this short little introduction that he does about what's going on in the story. Like the back of the book would be, basically. One of his biggest... Hi, Kira. My bird's right here. I would let her out, but she doesn't like leaving her cage. But she is curious as to what I'm doing, because she's never seen me do this before. So she's, like, watching me from the side of the cage. Here, I'll show you. Kira! Where'd you go? There you are. Say hi. Say hi. Or just stare at the camera. Okay. That was Kira, everybody. My little Kira cute. Yeah, she's just kind of like, why are you so weird? One of the things that Prey has an issue with, his name is Prey, P-R-E-Y, as in the hunted. So that's a big issue for him, his name. Obviously, it means he's been bullied his whole life. Another issue that isn't discussed until later on in the book is his eyes. He's very beautiful eyes, not just in the color, but the shape, his long eyelashes. He has a gorgeous young face. So he looks a little more effeminate than most guys, especially given his ridiculously tall and moderately built stature. He just, like, pretty face, guy body. So people, screw with him on it. But he has these beautiful, beautiful wolf eyes. But he wears contacts, obviously, to cover them up. And the way Ma explains it away for anyone that happens to see it and questions it, let's see, is that it's a rare genetic mutation that's probably was passed down from his biological mother. It's very rarely happens in humans, but it is an increased presence of, I don't know how to say it, pheomelanin. I'm probably saying it wrong, don't correct me please. or tell me how to correct it. Which means he has a heavy presence of melanin in the front layer of his irises, so they're more yellow than they would be like green. And so that was one of the cool things that was fun to research, was the different reasons why certain eyes are certain colors, and like why people the rare purple eyes. Oh god. And then I did research on finding out like different types of vision. So like different animals can see like different directions, and that's lizards, and it's creepy. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun working on this and researching it. My friend has, I believe it's a husky, I might be wrong, but this dog is gorgeous. She looks like a wolf. So I took pictures of her, and you can tell that he takes lots of pictures of her, because she poses like a professional. She just sits there and does whatever, and she's a gorgeous dog, and she's not done growing, so I have to do more pictures of her. But I wanted to use her possibly in my final cover when I do it with my Colorado pictures, and use her as a model for when I'm drawing. But the actual story starts with Prey standing in a back alley against a brick wall, and he's smoking a cigarette. Yes, he's underage. No, we don't condone it. Me and the bird. Sorry. I'm getting a headache. Underage anything I don't condone it. Come on. And it does happen. I mean, that's the way people are. And my iPod is dying all of a sudden. So, I'm just gonna do that. I don't know what happened. So I'm gonna switch to holding it now. But the story starts, he's in a back alley smoking, obviously. And he's got his hood up, he's got his sunglasses on, and he's just like exasperated. He's irritable, he's like, why do I have to be here? He's listening, he can hear the thunder in the distance, and he goes and he starts sniffing the air, because, he's a werewolf, obviously. It doesn't give it away right away in the book, but the title, I mean, come on. But there's like pretty blatant hints at it, but he never transforms until like way into the story, because shit goes down. Pardon my language, by the way. But god, I wish this battery would stay charged longer. As he's, smoking and just kind of dodging whatever, he can smell like old books and wet dog and other stuff, but over all of that he can smell rain, which, werewolf knows, come on. And he's like silently, or not silently, but more muttering about complaining because he's at a reform school. He goes to a reform school, not because he's a bad kid. He's intelligent, which kids in reform schools aren't all stupid, I mean. But because of the eyes and his name and everything else, people pick fights with him. And he has manic episodes because of the abuse that occurred during his early years. So he will flip on a switch and become aggressive and violent, etc. And it's not him, it's a separate personality that I explain later in the book. And with that, side note, with that being said, that I take that from my own disorders and my own mental health issues, because I do have a personality that is aggressive and violent and mean, and I don't like it. Back to the story. So as he's smoking, he hears, running and people quietly laughing, and flips his hood up because he's like, I really don't want these people to see me, I don't want to be here. He's just in a sour mood. These kids come up, and they're approximately his age, and the largest of the four, his name is Sting. They're a little gang within the reform school. I think what is his actual name? I wrote it down. His actual name is Victor, with a K. He's like what is the disowned son of a richer family. So he's just like bitter to the world and blah blah blah. And he's like, well, he doesn't know who Prey is, and he sees this guy in a hood, assumes it's some grown man or a teacher, and is like, can I have a smoke? Prey's like, are you 18? The kid nods. Prey knows he's not. Gives it to him anyway. Smart Prey, does have morals, doesn't give him a lighter. I mean, come on. And then, so he doesn't hand him the lighter, and the kid looks at him like, what the fuck, dude, give me your lighter. And Prey's like, well, you can't smoke if you don't have a lighter, kid. And he closed the cigarettes and put it back in his pocket. And the kid turns to his friends, and their names are Fang, Venom, and Acid. And their descriptions kind of tie with their names. And I'll explain it later. But they're Andy, Marco, and Corey. Not in that order. So Sting turns to his friends, is like, lighter, hand out. Holds his hand out. And they like fumble like crazy people to give it to him. This is gonna mess with my head. There we go. And so the Sting is like, so, what are you doing out here by those cool adults who usually, avoid this place? It's a reform school. And Prey's like, I'm not an adult, I'm just skipping my first day. And Sting's like, well, name's Victor, people call me Sting. And he does that weird head jolt that bad boys seem to do the thing. I suck at it. Don't laugh. And so one of the guys is like, all agitated, because Prey doesn't say anything. He doesn't say, nice to meet you, my name is nothing. So one of the guys is like, hey, when he introduces himself, he expects an introduction. And Prey's just like, you really want to do it? He doesn't say anything, he's just like, you really want to fuck with me? I'm like 2 feet taller than you. Not literally, he's like a foot taller than them. Another one's like, ditch the shades. You punk. Look at our leader with respect. And Prey's like, I'll keep him on. You won't like what you see if I don't. And he's kind of shrugging casual. And the other one, second in command, I don't know his name. I haven't figured that one out yet. Goes to take Prey's sunglasses off. Like, he just goes to snatch him off his face like a jerk. And Prey grabs him by the wrist, and low in his throat, he's like, don't even try it. I will break your wrist. Like, he's mean about it. Dude yanks his hand back, and Sting's like, guys, chill. He'll have to show up to class eventually. They'll tell us his name. And Prey's like, you should have brought an umbrella. It's going to pour now. And walks away as he flicks his cigarette butt. And the kids all look at him like, what the fuck? And then lightning, and it starts to pour. He's good at noticing that. It's part of being a creature. My ear itches. Hi. I'm a weird person. Ooh, we're already at 20 minutes. But so he goes through the school day, or part of the school day, and there's one teacher in specific, Mr. Jack Thomas, who is, none of the students act up in his class. He is strict, he is scary, ain't nobody want to screw with him. Well, class is about to start, and there's a knock on the door. Everybody's like, who's bugging this dude's class? Well, Prey's mom walks in, and his demeanor changes completely. It freaks the class out. And she's like, sorry, he forgot his lunch. And she goes and gives it to him, and says, don't forget to take your medicine. And she leaves, and it's a literature class. So he gives an assignment. What is the assignment? He says, if anyone can name 3 poets of classical genre, you'll pass the class for the day. Because, they're delinquents, they don't want to do schoolwork, they're, And so it's like completely silent, and Prey's just kind of like, okay. And he names a couple, William Blake, Lord Byron, Robert Frost. And Mr. Thomas is, like, genuinely impressed. And it's the woman he's, like, son. So he's just kind of like, go to lunch early. Just get out of here. Because you can tell that Prey's not a stupid kid. He's not a bad kid either. He's just gets into trouble because of other people. So he goes and he climbs up in a tree and he has this pill. And it's supposed to curb his secondary personality. It's supposed to settle his aggression and keep him from being as violent and dangerous. So he quickly eats up his lunch, and then after a little while, bell rings and the kids come out, and Sting and his group are like, Hunter! And they start, trash talking to him, you're mama's boy, blah, 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 blah. And one of them says that his mom is hot. And then Sting says, I would bang her. And Prey's like, don't you talk about my mom that way. Shut up. And he's like, I'd tap the bitch. Pardon my language. Not him, me. And Prey's done. He loses it. He doesn't lose it completely, but he breaks somebody's nose. I don't know whose. He breaks somebody's nose. He, drop kicks one of them. He's, really talented at dodging and then knocking people out simultaneously. Well, so obviously he gets into trouble. The principal is lenient with him this one time. Probably due to Mr. Thomas's encouraging words of, he's not a bad kid. And, he's new and blah, 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 blah. So, his mom comes and picks him up. He's kicked out of school for the day. And he apologizes and he feels so bad for getting into trouble and being a trouble to his ma. She's like, it's fine, I'm just disappointed that you can't go a whole day without getting into trouble. And then he asks, well, can I go for a run? Because it calms him down, it settles his nerves, and etc. And she's like, alright, just be back before sundown. So he takes out his contacts, gets out, goes into the trees, redoes his boots, hoodie, etc., and takes off. He bolts. And he goes for a couple hours just running. Like parkour, flipping over large boulders and kicking off trees and jumping down through streams and shit. Like, he just has a blast. But because of what he is, he enjoys it. It makes him feel at home. Well, he starts heading home, and he hears screaming. Now, typically, he would investigate, but he doesn't really care. Not to be offensive, he is all for protecting damsels in distress, but it's a new area, and you're in the woods, and he doesn't want to get shot at. But for some reason, when he hears the screaming, he freaks. Everything in his body suddenly goes on end. He bolts, and he gets there, and there's Wolf and a girl. I said this in the previous one. He forces Wolf into submission, and he gives the girl his hoodie, keeps his sunglasses on despite it now being after sundown, and he walks her home. And she asks him, why are your sunglasses on? He's like, girls run away because of my eyes, and guys pick on me, and not wearing my contacts. And she's like, well, I won't. He's like, I'll keep them on. And she said, well, I'm Ellie, by the way. And he said, well, people call me Hunter. She said, well, what's your name, though? And he's like, I don't want to say. People make fun of me for it. He's like, it's a girl. Girls don't talk to him. So he's really sad and whiny. Not in a bad way. And he's like, my full name is Prey James Hunter. And she's like, Prey is in prayer? And he's like, Prey is in the hunting. And she's like, Prey. I like it. And she's all happy-go-lucky. And he's just like, what? Weird. He's like, just don't tell anyone or call me that in front of people. And she's like, I won't. And she's like, well, are you new to town? And, what school do you go to? And he's like, well, Blackbird Reform. And she's like, what? But you're, such a nice guy. Oh. And he's like, well, I have anger issues and get into fights a lot. She's just like, And by this time, they're, at her house. And she's like, well, good night, Prey, and thanks, and see you soon. She kisses him on the cheek, turns to the house. He's flushed. He's like, a girl just kissed my face. He, doesn't watch TV. He's a massive shut-in. He's super shy. It's adorable. He runs home. Doesn't take the woods, just runs straight home. Turns out they live like 3 or 4 blocks apart. Like, it's almost a straight shot. And he gets their porch lights on. Ma's standing there, mad. She's like, explain yourself first. And Prey explains the whole thing, sparing, the wolf detail. That, he basically said that the wolf kind of ran off instead of that he, tackled it, forced it into submission. He's like, okay, Mom's like, okay, that's fine, good boy. Heroes deserve the reward. They have pie, whatever. And as he's going in, he sees Wolf, just kind of hiding in the tree line. Nobody else would notice it, but he's just kind of like, there's the wolf. What? Okay. Next morning, he goes early in the morning for a run, always. But he wasn't alone. The wolf was there. They're running, and he's like, okay, well, why are you following me? And the wolf barked, and Prey understood it. And he's like, oh, well, I'm a loner, but we can be friends. And he's like, just, don't let Ma see you. And Wolf just kind of looks at him like, who, what, huh? And he's like, Ma's the lady in my home. If she sees you, you might scare her. And he's like, oh yeah, don't, go after people. And Wolf's just like, yeah, okay, fine. And he starts, like, rolling around, stretching, and he's like, so you're a boy. Well, I'm gonna call you Wolf, because why not? And he gets home and turns on the coffee, and blase. And he goes through school, meets his teachers, has different issues, learns some things. His one teacher, Mr. Thomas, takes him to the other teacher who is similar to him in beliefs, etc. And who is also his partner, and is like, we gotta do something, because this kid does not frickin' belong here. He is intelligent, he's sweet, he's friendly, he's protective. He doesn't belong here. And so, like, they're talking about it, and he gets back to his classroom, and they went in his lunch. The kids in the classroom went through his lunch. It's high school. The teacher's not in the room. It's how people are. I had kids go through my stuff all the time, because, I'm a weirdo. And they're making fun of him because his mom wrote him a note, don't forget to take your medicine. And they're all, like, laughing at him and making fun of him, and they call him Mama's boy, and he takes out his contact, and Mr. Thomas is like, don't you start fighting. He's like, calm down. Like, he just warningly, Prey, or no, he says Hunter, contacts out, his whole body gets larger. He switches into his more aggressive side. He doesn't switch personalities, he just becomes more aggressive looking. And his eyes go from, like, a pretty yellow to, like, a very scary, angry color. Like, more red than yellow. Like, more orangey than gold, I guess. And he said, unless you have a death wish, I suggest you quickly put back my stuff the way you found it. And get out of my way. And everybody's like, we're not fucking with this dude. Because he doesn't look that menacing and scary until he's angry. Then he's terrifying. Like, short girls who are, cute and short, and then you offend them, and then they rip your head off. Yeah. And he has, obviously, a couple of a-hole teachers who are like, everyone in this school is delinquents, you're all stupid, blah, 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 blah. And that's one of the things that he ends up facing, and he goes to leave school, and he's, like, standing at the gate, because the property is gated. Obviously, kids like to skip class. And he's walking out, and he can hear running. Like, a pair of feet running. And, like, it's just out of nowhere he hears it. And he's like, what the? And then he hears his name being screamed, and he looks over, and Ellie is, like, booking it. Leaps up, and she's, 4 foot nothing. I'd say she's close to 5 feet. And she just takes off into a jump to hug him. And that kind of freaks him out, because, once again, no human contact. He's not social. So he kind of grabs her and, like, spins and rocks and sets her down and was like, okay, what the heck? And she's like, well, to walk home with you. And then, you know, his other classmates are behind him. Sting and them are, like, whistling suggestively and blah, 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 blah. And Prey, like, immediately goes to block Ellie because that's just his nature. He's like, don't even. Because it's a friend. He has a friend. Oh, it's mind-blowing for him. And one of them's like, calm down, Rage Machine. She just want to talk to the pretty lady. And Ellie's like, it's okay. And she looks at him, and she's like, I'm Ellie. She doesn't know, you know, that there's an issue. And one of them's like, well, what's a babe like you do in a place like this? And she gets all cute and flirty, and she goes up, and she goes, not even in your dreams. And they call her, one of them calls her a bitch. And she's like, the only dog I see here is you. Like, she is snickety. She is persnickety. And he kind of looks at Prey, like, okay, I'm gonna watch what I say. And he goes, fine, cunt. Prey goes to, you know, rip their heads off, and they're already on the floor. Because she, you know, beat the crap out of them. In 2.2 seconds. She basically just hit him in the balls and tripped him. She's like, my dad's a Marine, kicking asses in the family. And she's like, let's go. And she grabs Prey and they start walking off. And they're walking and talking and she's like, well, what are you doing Friday? He says, what I do every day. And he goes over his whole routine. Morning run, shower, wake ma, coffee, breakfast, school, home, homework, chores, piano practice, dinner, run, shower, sleep. And he's like, and then he goes, why? You know, he's not used to conversation, so he overtalks. He speaks too much. I can't, words. She's like, well, do you want to see a movie or something? She's very casual about it. So she's, you know, asking him out on a date. He doesn't even know what a date is. He doesn't know that either, that she's asking him. She's like, okay, sure. And then she's like, you play piano? And he's, yeah, I used to play some when he was a kid. They get near her house and her dad's sitting on the porch cleaning his guns, you know, as dads do. Because obviously she told her parents what happened. Because they knew Derek, which was her boyfriend, now ex. Yeah. And the dad's like, so you're the delinquent that saved my daughter. And he's like sizing Prey up and he's just being a-hole. You know how those kind of dads are, like they're way hella protective. And he said, her dad's like, so what misdemeanor did you commit to be at Blackbird? He's just like, he's mean to him, like, you know, everybody is when you're a delinquent. And he's like, nothing, they're just more equipped to restrain me if my manic depression gets out of control. And he's like really uncomfortable and he wants to leave. And Ellie's like, Dad, you're freaking him out. And she kind of steps in between him and he's like, Eliana Marie. He's like, goes to move him and she's like, you did not just snap at me. Mom, Dad's scaring him. And the dad's just like, oh shit. And so then the mom comes out and scolds him and is like, well, I don't care what school you go to. You saved my daughter. That's all that counts. Thank you very much. And then his mom calls and she's like, well, you know, dinner, you're not home. You're usually home before me. And she's like, we'll invite her over to dinner sometime. And then he apologizes to Ellie's parents and Ellie. And then he walks home and Ellie gives him a kiss on the cheek. He leaves, walks home. He gets home and his ma is singing. And it's Mad World by Gary Jules. And she's crying. And he goes and sits at the piano and is playing. And they have a sad moment because it's their morning song for Prey's pa. And they go and have dinner and they're eating on the porch and she's like, well, after dinner, go take the bowl and feed your dog and then give him a bath. And Prey's like, what? And she's like, he's not good at, you know, hiding. I saw him following me to work. And Prey's like, Wolf, get over here. And she's like, he goes to scold him. And then she's like, don't you start being mad at him. You had a dog and you didn't tell me. And so, you know, gives him a bath and let's see. I'm literally flipping through the book because I don't remember the plot. I haven't read it in a while. And then they're in the kitchen. He's like, well, can I ask you a question? And she's like, well, of course. And he says, well, can I go to the movies on Friday with Ellie? And she's like, you have a date? And she's like freaking out. He's like, what's a date? Is it like what's in the book? What? He's like, what? Confused. And then she tells Wolf to go get her phone. Wolf is he seems like a well-trained dog, but it's because of his connection to Prey that he's more understanding of human things. Like, he knows what a phone is, etc. He knows how to turn on a coffee pot with just clicking the button with his nose, like my coffee pot. You just click the button and it turns on. So she calls Mr. Thomas and is like, okay, well, Prey has a date, and blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, I'll be there for coffee. And Prey goes for a run. And this is the first hint of Ellie's family secret. Because she steps out onto her balcony. She's in a towel. She's got her hair in a towel. And you hear her mom going, well, don't forget to, what is it? What does she say? Quote your poem for the night. And she's like, well, what's tonight? And her mom's like, well, it's a new moon. And she's like, William Bryant, the new moon. I'll quote. Hold on, let's see. You are one of our oldest and esteemed. Fine, then I'll quote your due. And she starts reciting the poem, and then Prey steps up and is reciting it, and they're going back and forth. She's like, what are you doing here? If my parents see you, you're gonna get shot. And he jumps up on the balcony, and they're talking, and he says, well, invites her over for dinner the next night. Blah, 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 and then he goes home. And Ma is already in bed, blah, 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 and that's the end for today. I will see you guys next week with my next little talk about my books. If you have any questions about Prey and the Wolf, leave a comment down below and let me know. Bye!